Ale, bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFP podcast. This is Jorge Martin, and hey, you know what? We are on YouTube. It's the NFL Insider Series. We are in the last few that are coming through. But hey, you know what? Make sure when you go to Familia FFP on YouTube and you give us a like and subscribe. Por favor. We're getting really close to a milestone, so I'd really appreciate it. And also, as we've been talking about, we are a proud member of the Fantasy Points Media Group. Please make sure when you go to fantasypoints.com to get the content from the great John Hanson, the fantasy guru himself, from Graham Barfield, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, Tom Brawley, Wes Huber. I mean, some of the greats. I mean, stuff from Greg Cosell, Adam Kaplan. I mean, just so much stuff is coming through. It is going to help you win your fantasy leagues. I use it myself to give you great analysis. So make sure you're going to fantasypoints.com, put in the promo code Familia22 or Familia22 if you want to do it in Spanish, and get 10% off. And Familia, I tell you, the return guests have been awesome. And this man, when I say that I have a lot of Latino pride, this man has a lot of pride. Pride of Detroit, specifically Mike Payton. I mean, he is one of the columnists for Pride of Detroit. He is, down getting the stories directly from the field, directly from the locker room. I tell you, you know what? He's great, but also on top of it, he had last year some of the best Mexican food takes I think anybody. I mean, I swear, I'm glad we were doing this later in the day out here in California because it was close to dinner time. I had to go eat something. I had to go make some tacos to do that. Mike, mi amigo, Miguel, thank you for joining us. Bienvenidos. As we like to say, estás en tu casa.
Thanks, Jorge. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I've got plenty more Mexican food takes where I'm going to keep eating. I'm going to keep eating, and my wife's going to keep cooking, and my wife's family's going to keep cooking, and I'm going to keep eating. So.
Nothing better than the authentic stuff. Nothing better than the
love it.
And you know what? As we were talking about before we started to record, it's you were talking about it's a kind of strange sense of optimism right now going on in Detroit. The team's on the uptick. There are a lot of things to like. Can you give me a little bit of the feeling, the sabor that's going on in Detroit among the Lions fans who are some of the? I mean, they've had it rough.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like you just mentioned, this franchise for history, for years and years and years, my entire life has been like the laughing stock of the NFL. And a lot of that has to do with, ownership and how they were run and the coaches that they had on the team and the players that, had retired early or, they weren't able to hang on to. And it felt like for the longest time that sort of thing was always going to go on. But now it's just so different. Sheila Hamp, sorry, she dropped the Ford part from her name. Sheila Hamp has taken over as the team's owner a little over 2 years ago. Got rid of Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn, hired Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, and the optimism started to change overnight. Like you could see the little seedlings of it. You saw Dan Campbell's infamous knee biting press conference, and it quickly went from this is going to be a joke to like, wow, these players are really responding to these guys. I mean, like SI put out a story the other day about how the players are leaving the field and hugging a GM like after practice, just a random, they're all just hugging and fist bumping the GM of the team, not the coach, but the GM. Like that's how tight knit it is. And I know they're a team that just won 3 games last year, but if you watched any of those games, you could see that they fought harder than I think any team in Detroit has ever fought. And they go out and have this amazing draft, and they get Hard Knocks, and they get the NFL draft coming in 2024 to Detroit. And it just seems like this has been the off season of the Lions. Like this is we're getting there. Like it's actually happening. It's tough to explain because we've never seen it before.
Here, we're not used to nice things,
right?
I tell you it. Well, let's jump into it because I was thinking about it this morning. uh, about, kind of putting together the notes for this. I remembered back, I mean, being in LA, I got to see Jared Goff from his first NFL. I actually saw in person his first NFL start all the way through his Ram career. And 2017, 2018, his two best years, he had a great offensive line. He had a dynamic running back who was great running the ball as well as in the passing game. He had dynamic receivers out on the outside, good tight end. It looks like everything is set up for him. Now, he's not going to be drafted among the first 12 quarterbacks, in a 12, which would be for likely starter. But could he still be? I mean, we saw signs of life. What are we seeing as far as like the progression in this offense when it comes to Jared Goff and how he could kind of like maybe become a second quarterback in a super flex league, or but also to really just be the focal point of this offense, to just kind of the point guard.
Yeah, so it's really a few different things. So last year at the beginning of the season, he, for the first half before their bye week, he looked like, I mean, let's be honest, he looked like the worst quarterback in the entire NFL. I mean, it was rough. It was really bad. Lots of turnovers, lots of sacks, a lot of sacks that were caused by him. It was bad. And then the second half of the season starts, and Dan Campbell takes over the play calling from Anthony Lynn. And from that point on, Jared Goff became like this different player that we hadn't seen in Detroit until then. Like, he started to look like a competent quarterback, and he started to look like a guy who was willing to stand in the pocket and take those shots that he just wasn't taking earlier in the season. So I think confidence has been a big thing for him. I think that's one of his big traits. Maybe not trait. It's his big thing that, like, every player has a thing. And for Jared Goff, it's confidence. And I think he lost that confidence under Sean McVay at the end of his run there. And I think when the Rams traded him, it took another blow. I mean, his confidence took another blow, and you could see it. He wasn't throwing downfield. He wasn't doing a lot of things. He looked just scared out there. He just did not look like a first overall draft pick. And when the Lions won that first game against the Vikings, like, he just looked. He took that from that, that last second touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, I think that restored his confidence to like levels that maybe it had never been at, and that's how he took that, and he won two NFC Offensive Player of the Week awards. He won the second one a couple weeks later against Arizona. He's got a new offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, who was the team's tight end coach last year, but is responsible for drawing up some of those plays in the second half of the season that Jared Goff succeeded in. So attach that to the fact that the Lions went out and got DJ Chark for him this year. They got Jameson Williams, who we don't know when he's going to be ready to go. But when he is, I mean, the guy, you've seen how fast he is. He'll take the top off of just about any defense out there. Madden thinks so too. They just rated him a 98 in speed. I think he's the fastest receiver on the game, if I'm not mistaken. There might be one person. I think Tyreek Hill might be 99.
Fitting.
Yeah. And is also going to get TJ Hockenson back, and he has, one of the best offensive lines in the game. All these things are adding together, and it's really starting to, not just show the fans, but show the coaches. Mark Brunell came out. Mark Brunell's the Lions quarterback coach now. He came out the other day, and he said that he thinks Jared Goff's confidence is at an all-time high. And he, from what he's seen with Jared, I don't know if he's talking about Jared's time in Detroit or Jared's time as a whole in the NFL. He's saying that he's looking more in control and better than he's ever looked. So, I mean, we'll see when it comes to getting on the field week one, what that really means and if that's all true. But I think that there's a lot going the right way for Jared Goff.
Yeah, and I will say, seeing his girlfriend celebrate that victory against the Vikings, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Follow on Twitter.
Good for him. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember saying, like, when we first saw Jared's girlfriend, I didn't know who she was, but and he was struggling early on. I was like, man, he may not be a good quarterback, but he's pretty good with the ladies.
He knows how to pick them. He
He knows
knows
how
how
to
to.
pick them. They're two good looking people there. Yeah.
Yes, very much, very much. Without going into any Brent Musburger, we'll jump
Oh,
into
geez.
yeah, we'll jump into the running backs a little bit.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift is getting a lot of heat in a good way in the fantasy football community. There are people who are talking him as a possibility for a wide running back one overall as one of those guys if Jonathan Taylor doesn't repeat. He's such a threat out of the backfield. 78 targets last year in only 13 games. If he could have an explosive year with the touchdowns, we are possibly talking about could we be talking about a top 5 running back this year, or even better?
I think it's possible. He's definitely gotten better the more time he's on the field. I think the issue that could affect his fantasy status is that there's a lot more weapons on the field now.
Yeah.
Last year Jared Goff had DeAndre Swift, and that's about all he had. And there were games, especially like against Pittsburgh, where it seemed like the Lions had given up on doing anything else, and they were just giving the ball to Swift, and he was making some things happen. But that's because they had a lack of weapons. TJ Hawkinson had gone down, and Khalif Raymond, I think, was their top receiver at that time. So now with Shark and Williams and all these new additions and Hockenson coming back, and not just that, but also in the running back core with Jamal Williams, who looked pretty good last year, and then Craig Reynolds, who was an undrafted free agent who just kind of shocked everybody when he got some time in the regular season last year, and he wound up getting a contract after that. So I think that there's a chance that there's going to be a more balanced backfield in terms of who's going to get the carries, and Swift's going to be the lead dog, obviously, but I don't think you're going to see him used as much in the pass game as you did last year, especially when Williams comes back, because they're going to do a lot of Tyreek Hill type stuff with him, I would imagine. I don't know. I think there's a good chance that he could be one of the best running backs in the league. I just don't know how this offense is going to set up, because it is a little bit new. I just don't know how that's going to all work out with just so many more options now.
And that's the thing. But I mean, still, you think he's going to be a pretty dynamic part of the passing game. I mean, 78 targets. I don't think we see in only 13 games. I don't think we see that going down anytime soon, right?
No, I think you do see that going down.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, again, like the issue that the Lions offense had last year was that they started the year off with Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perryman. They cut Brashad Perryman. Tyrell gets hurt in the first game, and the Lions are left with Khalif Raymond and Quintez Cephas. Then Cephas gets hurt. Amon-Ra St. Brown had an amazing season, but it didn't really start until like halfway through the year. So he was kind of the only thing that Goff had. Like, he trusted TJ Hockenson and he trusted DeAndre Swift, and then Hawkinson got hurt. And then it was just like, they just kept feeding Swift over and over again, whether it was in the back, taking carries out of the backfield or throwing passes to him. I think, he'll still be a receiving running back, because, that's a strength for him. But I think that with everybody coming back healthy and the additions that the Lions have, I think that you'll see those targets lower a little bit in the pass game.
Okay. Well, obviously you talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was a league winner. I was very happy that I recommended him. Except the only tough part was someone that I was playing in a league with must have been reading what I had put out, because he picked him up and used him against me the very first week that he blew up on that streak at the end of the season. So so that was kind of funny. I did tip a cap, but a lot of people are talking about the fact that because Swift missed some time during that stretch, Hawkinson was out during that stretch, that Amon-Ra St. Brown may not be as big a focal point. I kind of find it hard to expect that his targets are going to go down when he's a great slot receiver and he already established a connection. What is your outlook on him specifically, and then maybe DJ Chark, and we can talk about Williamson in a second.
Yeah, well, I was lucky for myself that nobody was listening to the things I was saying about Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I got him in the last round, and he helped me get pretty far into the playoffs. So thank you, Amon-Ra, and thank me for being smart enough to do that. And but no, I don't foresee his targets going down. You mentioned the connection him and Goff have, and there's a real trust there, and you saw that building and building and building. And he became the Lions' #1 target, for the second half of the season. And I think that, they're going to do different things with him that they didn't, weren't able to do last year. Now that he's going to be able to take advantage of some of the, coverage that DJ Chark is going to command. And especially when Jameson Williams comes in, there's going to be a lot of coverage that's going to be commanded there with that speed. So I think that Amon-Ra is still going to be a big part of this offense, and I would make sure you pick him. I would definitely draft him this year. I don't see that going anywhere.
And what about Chark on a 1-year deal? I think there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, and it makes you get a motivated player who is talented. So and with William, and it also keeps you from rushing Jameson Williams back from his injury. Could we be seeing a good season on the outside for Chark?
I think as long as he stays healthy, I think there's a solid chance he could return back to that, that Pro Bowl form that he was once in. It's just going to, the Lions, their offense were missing two big things last year. They couldn't get downfield for big throws or anything like that, and they struggled in the red zone a little bit. So now you got a target that you can go up and get it, and now you got a guy who can take the top off of the field a little bit. He's not as fast as Williams or anything like that, but he can get down there. He can make those contested catches, and I think that the Lions are definitely going to utilize him like that because they needed a receiver like him pretty badly last year. So I would definitely be looking to get DJ Chark in free agent, or not free agency, but in my fantasy draft. I at this point I wonder if Amon-Ra is going to be that top guy, or if DJ Chark is going to be that top guy coming out of week 1. It's going to be an interesting little battle there.
And you talked about Jameson Williams. He got hurt the second week of January, and usually and I had Dr. Edwin Porras on earlier this offseason, and he said that no doctor is going to sign off on less than 9 months from the injury date, from surgery date. That puts us mid-October, approximately. And then and a lot of times, and that's like the bare minimum. Everything goes great, but I mean, it's hard to think that they're going to rush back a rookie, especially if things are going okay. I mean, I'm personally not recommending to draft him. Maybe wait and pick him up on the waiver wire if if it's looking like he's coming back. Is that kind of like a good MO to take with Jameson Williams?
Yeah, I think that'd be a wise way to go. I mean, you got to look at it like at this point, Dan Campbell recently he was asked about this, and he said he doesn't see it happening. He doesn't see Williams being at camp. It's probably not going to happen. I, for one, think there's a possibility he shows up late in camp, but even if that happens, they're still gonna have him practice with the team for a while before they actually put him in the roster. Then once he's in the roster, maybe there's going to be like a snap count. I think it'll be a while before he gets into actually being a full-on part of the team's offense. So if maybe you want to stash him for the end of the season, because he is a playmaker. I'm telling you, this guy, the speed is insane. So I would stash him maybe. I wouldn't draft him though. I don't know if I don't know. That's tough. It just really depends. When are you doing your fantasy draft, after camp or before?
Exactly. I mean, most people are drafting like that last week, from like the last week of August through Labor Day. Like a lot of people are like, like Labor Day through the first, literally till the day of the beginning of the season. So I look at Williams, and insanely talented, but I look at the settings of my leagues, and I just make the determination, if you've got an IR spot available, yeah, then, and he's on the IR, but by the time you draft him, yeah, you put him on in your IR slot, and you sit him there. But if you don't have an IR slot, just wait, let somebody else will pick him.
Right.
And then they're going to drop him because they can't wait for him any longer. So, it'll usually be a Detroit fan. One of my cousins is a big Lions fan, so we'll do that. TJ Hawkinson,
Yes.
on the tight end side, he is, from that Iowa tree. But you look at him, he's very talented. He's had injury issues, but year 3, I mean, this is kind of like that prime time for tight ends. Again, we were talking about it, a big tight end target for Jared Goff. He is a guy who's in like that, 6 to 8 range on tight ends. Could he be kind of like a bargain and maybe look at a big season?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, TJ Hockenson is very much loved by Jared Goff. There's a friendship there. There's a trust there. There were plenty of times last season where it was like, come on, Jared, the defense is like totally 100% aware that you're going to pass the ball to TJ Hockenson right now. Like, so I don't think anything like that goes away. I think that you're going to see a lot of relief for TJ Hockenson because, again, last year it was kind of predictable that he was going to get the ball, and it kind of took away his options of being a mismatch out there when we're the top target, like everybody's going for you. So now when you've got some things to balance that out, some other guys to take on the coverage, a run game that is suddenly pretty decent, that's going to keep some defenses honest. I think that Hawkinson's going to have a pretty good year. Is he going to have like a Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce type of year? I don't think so. I would make sure to draft those guys first.
Oh yeah.
But if you're somewhere in the 5th or 6th round, I don't know. I'm not that great at the whole fantasy draft thing, but if you're somewhere down there and he's sitting there, then I would go grab him. I would definitely have him. You just have to be aware that he kind of struggles with yards after catch. Hawkinson's big thing is that he catches the ball and he falls down, like on purpose, almost, it seems. And so there's some things there that he needs to work out. But when you're in the red zone, he's a great target and he can make some things happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned where he's being drafted. He's being drafted at the tail end of the 5th round, early 6th round. Overall pick number 60. So right there, he's the 7th tight end coming off the boards according to Fantasy Pros ADP. So yeah, I mean, he's in a tight end premium league, he could surprise, like Scott Fishbowl that I'm playing in. He's I mean, yeah, it's health, and you mentioned yards after the catch. Yeah, you want to see that. You want to see more of that. I mean, especially a big guy like that. I mean, watch some George Kittle tape,
right?
But yeah, you also don't want to see him getting hurt. The O-line, incredible investment in the offensive line. PFF rated it the number 3 offensive line in all of the NFL in its rankings going into the 2022 season. How important is this group this group is just, it's going to be the foundation. If this team takes a step forward, does it feel like it's foundational on this group?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say games are won in the trenches, and the Lions heavily invested in their offensive line, and then heavily invested in their defensive line this offseason. So, yeah, I mean, this is a really good group. They've got one of the best, maybe the best center in the league. I know that some people will argue that Frank Ragnow is not the best, but I think he's the best. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Lions guy. But and then Taylor Decker had a pretty good season at left tackle. Then Penei Sewell was as advertised, maybe even better. I think he surprised a lot of people playing both left and right tackle last year. But once he switched to right, he was one of the very tippy top best right tackles in the league during that portion of the season. So there's some questions at guard. with Vaitai and Jackson. Whether or not Jackson did make a Pro Bowl last year as an alternate, but he wasn't. He was good, but he wasn't like he wouldn't have made that Pro Bowl if it wasn't an alternate, that sort of thing. So there's some questions there at guard. They do have some nice depth. They brought back Evan Brown, who played center for most of the season after Ragnow went down. He's able to play guard as well. So there's nice depth there. There's great Pro Bowl worthy type players. So I mean that offensive line, if it shows up like it's supposed to, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a real issue for some defensive lines around there, and I think it's going to help that run game, and I think it's going to help Goff have time to throw the ball, and I think it's going to help some fantasy players, owners rather, with some Lions guys on their team help score some points.
Yeah, that's where I think Chark could benefit because he's a deep ball threat, and that could just that extra second or two is going to let him just kind of get down the field a little bit further. So I really like it when teams invest heavily in the offensive line, and now all they have to do is produce. That's it. On the other side of the ball, how do they, obviously Aiden Hutchinson came in at the number 2 overall pick. You've got a team that a lot of times when you have a young defense, it could take a little while for it to gel. How do they shape up against the run and against the pass? I'm asking from the standpoint of recommending or not recommending players when they're playing the Detroit Lions.
Well, that's a tough question to answer because the Lions defense was pretty bad last year, and while they fought really hard and they kept the team in some games, they're still so young and inexperienced, and that's kind of an issue. This is a really young group of guys who were either undrafted free agents or high draft picks or coming off an injury, or there's just a lot of scenarios there, a lot of storylines to pay attention to. I think Aiden Hutchinson is going to be a great player. We saw him at Michigan all year last year. He was a problem. He was a terror. And they did put a lot of investment in that defensive line. They drafted a lot of players. They made some moves. So I think that the defensive line is going to show a lot of improvement. Really, any improvement is good improvement because they had a really hard time getting to the quarterback last year. Getting Romeo Okwara back and getting Charles Harris to re-sign with the team, that's a big deal. That's their 2 sack leaders from the last 2 years. So it just really depends if that linebacking core, which looks kind of weak at the moment, holds up, and if that secondary is healthy and ready to go. Jeff Okudah looks incredible right now. Is he going to look incredible on the field? I think so. I love his work ethic; it's incredible. But there's a lot of other guys around him that are still very young and still, again, very inexperienced. So I think the Lions defense is going to hold them back from some things that they may be ready to accomplish on offense.
Well, maybe it just makes for some shootouts. So we love those in fantasy.
Yeah, me too. Everybody loves
them. Last one. I mean, this was awesome, Mike. Great to reconnect and do this again. Like I teased at the beginning, your Mexican food takes just made me so hungry. What, any new discoveries or a current favorite that you got going on? Could be tacos, could be anything.
I tried Menudo the other day. Not the Ricky Martin boy band, but the stew. It was all right. I don't know, man.
It's an acquired taste.
It's an acquired taste. My wife doesn't even like it, but so I gave it a shot, and that's kind of the newest thing that I've done. But other than that, we my wife's birthday party was a few weeks ago. We had the whole family over, and everybody was like, I was manning the grill. I cooked up all the dismillo, and my brother-in-law's doing all the tortillas, and my mother-in-law's over there with the beans and everything. And it was like I'm Mexican too.
Yes. Yes. You got your card. You got your card. You earned the card. You're on the grill with the carne asada and everything. It's
Yeah.
it is on. And just so you know, the thing about menudo, it's not my favorite either. But for the hangover, there may not be a better elixir.
All right,
So
I'll keep that in mind.
hopefully you don't need it, but just in case, throwing it out there for you.
All right, I will definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, amigo, this was awesome. So I want to give you the floor. Anything you got coming up with training camps about ready to open up, and anything you got coming up on Pride of Detroit?
So I put up an article today actually about my 6 bold predictions for the Lions training camp, and they're pretty bold. I went real bold.
Can you give me one?
Yeah, I think that the Lions are going to have Hard Knocks get their highest ratings ever. I really do. I think the world's going to fall in love with Dan Campbell once they see how just fun and infectious that guy is, and they're going to be playing clips on Sports Center the next day. I'm telling you that the Lions are going to be everybody's team coming out of this.
The new America's team.
Only everybody won't hate us like they do the Cowboys.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, everybody make sure you're following Mike at POD_Payton. And also,
Can I plug one more thing? So I started a new podcast venture a few weeks ago. It's not football related, but if you like basketball, more specifically basketball history, me and my co-host Keith Trudeau, who's a basketball historian, are serving up all sort of historical biographies. We do redrafts. We do all sorts of things it's called Bad Boys and Beyond. Ooh. And it's on all the apps that you listen to podcasts on, and it's definitely a lot of fun. I think people will like it if you're a big basketball person.
Well, me being a lifelong Laker fan, dating back to the Showtime era, I do not have good memories of the Bad Boys. So Dennis Rodman may be the only guy I felt like who could really stick to Magic Johnson and hold him down. But speaking of Magic, where does he, since you're talking about history, where does he rank on the all-time list for you or your co-host?
Oh, you're asking for controversy.
Yes.
All right. For me, I think he's the second best player of all time.
Ooh.
I really do. I mean, I'm an old school guy, and I think Jordan's the best ever. I know everybody would want to say LeBron is number 2, but for me, like Magic changed the entire game. I mean, a 6'9" point guard. I mean, in 1980 when they won the championship, the guy played every single position on the court. Like, it was insane. LeBron's great and everything, but I've never seen him do that. I've never seen him, play center. Like, it's insane. And not only that, but just like, him and Larry Bird, obviously, you got to give Larry some credit too. They brought the NBA to prominence. I mean, they put it on the map. There's no Michael Jordan, there's no LeBron, there's no none of that without what Magic and Larry were able to do to make the NBA go from this game that was happening in smoky arenas and half of the time you weren't even able to see the game on TV to like it's glitz and glamour and like it's what everyone needs to see. So yeah, Magic for me is in high regard. Plus, he's a Spartan.
So, yes.
He's my guy.
East Lansing. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I have gotten in more than one argument saying that Magic was better than Michael. Okay. Just because I say it sometimes to kind of start it, but my one bit of reasoning is, and yes, I give all the praise to Michael, 6 titles, 2 3-peats. The only thing that I tell people is, if Michael scored 8 points, the Bulls lost. If Magic had a game where he scored 8 points, he could get 20 assists and 15 rebounds, and the Lakers win by 20. So that's always been mine. I'm glad winning time, as much as it takes kind of history into a little bit of kind of uses history a little bit loosely. I'm glad it shows the greatness of Magic, and I'm glad. And yes, East Lansing, he's great. He's one of my all-time. He is my all-time favorite athlete, and I got to interview him one time, and I was like a kid in a candy store.
Oh wow,
19 of the greatest minutes of my life. So
I bet.
Fantastic. Oh, Mike, eso fue un gran placer. Just a blast. Abrazos, saludos to you and your family. Thank you. I mean, the next family cookout, I will be there with you in spirit, with holding a cerveza, waiting to take some carne asada or some other meat off the grill as it before it gets out served to everybody else.
Absolutely, you got it, man.
Salud, mi amigo, and everybody, familia. That's just all for our show. Again, go to fantasypoints.com. Make sure you're getting that promo code, putting in that promo code Familia22, Familia22, get 10% off. And special thanks to Anchor for putting our audio podcast out there on Apple, Google, Spotify. Give us a rate and review, por favor. And again, one more plea, get it on when you're on YouTube. Go to Familia. You're watching us on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button. It's free, please. And it helps our Familia FFP podcast, helps us keep growing. And one last thing, FamiliaFFP.com for original content. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming out between now and the beginning of the season. We are going to be helping you win your leagues, familia. Estamos aquí para servirlos. Como siempre, we're here to help you. So remember, todos somos familia. Salud.